Presidential Guards Brigade placed on high alert over suspicious coup plot in Nigeria. Key brigades under watch as commander holds emergency meetings with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Hello viewers and welcome to InfoGist TV. Last week, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, warned people calling for a coup over the current economic hardship in Nigeria to desist from such. The Presidential Guards Brigade has been put on high alert over unusual movements leading to suspicious coup plot in Nigeria. It was reported exclusively on Sunday that the suspicion prompted emergency meetings involving the commander of the Presidential Guards Brigade, Colonel Adebisi Onasanya, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila. The Presidential Guards Brigade was placed on high alert after the unusual armored corps, the movement spurred coup suspicions. Now, last week, Colonel Onasanya met with the President and the Chief of Staff twice within 20 hours. They have also placed key brigades under watch due to the planned protests. A top presidency source told our reporters, there has been tension in the country amid the current hardship, rising inflation, and the high cost of living following the removal of fuel subsidy and the floating of the naira by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. The floating of the naira allowed the market forces to determine its value. The policies have pushed up the prices of goods and services astronomically, increased the rate of the inflation, and worsened hardship in the country. Now, last week also, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, warned people calling for a coup over the current hardship economy in Nigeria to desist from such. Musa, who said the armed forces would continue to protect the country's democracy, warned that the long arms of the law would soon catch up with the proponents of the coup d'etat. While fielding questions from journalists when he inaugurated the main entrance of the 6th Division Nigerian Army and Officers Transit Accommodation in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, the CDs admitted that the country was going through serious economic challenges. But he, however, insisted that having a military coup in the country was not an option. He said the military would protect Nigerians' democracy, as according to him, Nigerians want democracy and the country does better under democracy. He said the military would continue to support democracy, adding that the people calling for coup d'etat are evil people who do not mean well for Nigerians. He wants such people to be very careful because the law will come after them. And according to him, everybody goes through a trying period in their life. You can see the government putting efforts to ensure that we come out better. And it is when you go through difficulties and come out better, you will really appreciate what it is to build a nation, he stated. Nigeria's naira recently crashed to a record low against the dollar on the official markets. We should recall that. And also last week, it was reported that the naira exchange for 1,980 naira to $1 on the parallel markets and 1,780 naira on the official market, as a swift decline continued amid the government's clampdown on the currency speculators. Now, meanwhile, there have also been protests against the hardship, rising inflation, and the high cost of living in several parts of the country, following some economic policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. Now, for instance, there have been protests in Kano State, in Ogun State, in Niger State, in Sokoto State, in Oyo, and Osun States to express their displeasure with the unprecedented level of hunger in the land. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Labour Congress has also announced a nationwide protest scheduled for February 27th and 28th to kick against the economic challenges facing Nigerians. The decision came after a 14-day ultimatum issued to the Nigerian government regarding the widespread of hardship in the country. But the Department of State Services (DSS) and the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi SAN have urged the Nigerian Labour Congress to shelve its proposed nationwide protests. Similarly, the Trade Union Congress (TUC) has warned that the planned protests being championed by the Nigerian Labour Congress may lead to anarchy due to the tense nature of the country amid current hardship and prevailing hunger in the land. The government warned that the Nigerian Labour Congress would be in contempt of court if the planned protest was held. But a senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, has written to Fagbemi noting that the Nigerian Labour Congress would not be in contempt of court over its planned nationwide protest. In the letter dated February 24, 2024, and addressed to Fagbemi, Falana said, "We submit without any fear of contradiction that the proposed public protest of the Nigerian Labour Congress is not contemptuous over the two ex parte orders of the National Industrial Court. In particular, the issue of contempt does not arise as the Nigerian Labour Congress has challenged the jurisdiction of the National Industrial Court to entertain the substantive case." Now, let's look down to the history of the coup in Africa. Indeed, the African continent has seen a significant increase in coups in the last 3 years, with military figures carrying out takeovers in Gabon, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Sudan, in Guinea, Chad, and Mali, respectively. Now, of 492 attempted or successful coups carried out around the world since 1950, Africa has seen 220, the most of any region, with 109 of them successful. Jonathan Powell and Clayton data shows that Powell told VOA that this is because Africa tends to have many of the conditions that are normally associated with coups. Coups have become increasingly limited to the poorest countries in the world, and the recent wave of coups fits into that, he said. Gabon, Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Chad, and Mali all had less than $22 billion in GDP in 2022, according to a World Bank estimate, while Sudan had a GDP of $52 billion. By comparison, therefore, the United States GDP was worth $25 trillion in 2022, ranking it the highest in the world. Our country's experiences ongoing terrorism campaigns and the insurgencies are also disproportionately more likely to see coups, according to Powell, as well as those nations whose leaders lack legitimacy in the eyes of citizens or armed forces. Leaders of Niger coup in July 2023, as well as those who took over the government in Burkina Faso in September 2022, cited their government's failure to stem a deadly Islamic insurgencies in the Sahel as part of the justification for their takeovers. Now, out of 54 countries on the African continent, 45 have had at least one coup attempt since 1950, and according to data collated by Powell and Thine, narrowing the focus to only those countries that have experienced a successful takeover, one in which perpetrators hold power for at least 7 days. That number dropped to 37, or about 2/3 of nations on the continent. Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, had a long history of coups following the independence in 1960, with 8 coup attempts, 6 of them were successful. However, since 1999, the country has transferred power through democratic elections and helped usher in greater stability in West Africa and the continent as a whole, the reporter noted.